What do you mean you can't afford the Rotom hoverboard? Why are you broke? Who spent all your money? Your mom? Are you from Johto or? Hey, what's good, Joe? Soul here, and welcome back to the story mode. So, at this point in time, it's already been a good couple of days since the official announcement of Pokemon Winds and Waves, the 10th generation of Pokemon. We now good and well know that it's well over a year away, so we have a lot to talk about before we get that next inevitable showcase for it. When that next showcase will actually be, I have absolutely no idea. I don't think we're gonna get it during a Nintendo Direct, which means we probably will see something maybe later at the end of this year during the next Pokemon Presents, so we'll see what happens, I guess. That being said though, I think it's okay for now to throw out a super early wish list while we don't know anything about this game. You guys have heard me say this plenty, and you're going to hear me say it a lot throughout the course of this coming year, but there's a lot of things that I would really like to see change in modern Pokemon. And I feel like if there was any time to make any major shakeups in regards to this series, it would be the 10th generation of the franchise. Here I've made a pretty loose list of a lot of things that I would like to see going into this next generation. Granted, we could probably go super in-depth about everything that I have listed here, and we're likely to do that throughout the course of this upcoming year because, again, we're not really going to have much to talk about in regards to Pokemon Winds and Waves for a long time. Which is why I want to take these very early ages and get as weird and as crazy and as out of pocket as possible with all of my wishes, hopes, and anything in between. That being said, I think we get the gist by now, so why don't you go ahead, get cozy, get nice and relaxed. It's about lunchtime right now. Grab your chestnut burger patty, make sure to doll it up with some teriyaki sauce, some cheese, some pineapple. Put it right between two dash buns, take a bite, and make sure to wash it all down with some Fresca fresh from the fridge, cause it's cold but we don't need ice. You know what I'm saying? Get it out of here, beat it into the street, we don't need it. While we talk about my very early hopes and wishes for Pokemon Winds and Waves. First things first, I feel like in some way, shape, or form, the battle system needs to be just a little altered. Hang on, put the pitchforks and torches down, we can talk about this. Fundamentally, there is absolutely nothing wrong with straightforward turn-based RPGs. That's how the series has always been, and that's what people are used to. I totally get it. However, after experiencing the Legends games and, well, you know, other RPGs, I think it'd be more than fair game for them to take a little bit more of a risk and do something a little different with that turn-based battle system. Funny enough, I do have an entire video written out about this, but to give you a general idea, I think we could deign to take a little bit of inspiration from Final Fantasy VII or Chrono Trigger. Essentially, it would be transforming it from a turn-based battle system into a time-based battle system. I have a hard time imagining a situation in which they go crazy all out and actually give like special attacks and stuff like that. I don't think they're doing all that, but I do kind of like the idea of having a gauge that's dependent on your Pokemon speed that tells you when you're going to be able to attack next. Naturally, of course, this would obviously apply to your opponents as well. Of course, depending on their speed or their power or whatever that gauge is dependent on, you want to be really careful about who you have out. Now, of course, an idea like this one would probably cause a lot of issues because it's so heavily dependent on certain stats and it would ruin the competitive scene and stuff like that, but may I propose something? Champions is a thing now, so I don't think we need to think too heavily about how it affects the competitive scene anymore. That game's entire existence allows for breathing room in the development space for mainline titles because you always know that at the very least it'll be a little bit more balanced over there. So yes, I'm fully aware that with that simple proposal there comes a lot of issues with it. My general point is to just have something a little bit more engaging. In the case of other people, I can't really speak on Pokemon Legends EA because I know that that's a really mixed bag depending on who you are. But I think that it was a lot easier for me and probably a lot of others to resonate with a battle system like that because it was naturally so much more engaging. And as much as I love traditional turn-based combat, I feel that there are little tiny microscopic ways that we could modify it so that it feels just a little bit more immersive. I think a lot of people nowadays are just not on board with the idea of turn-based RPGs because they don't have the attention span for it. And that sucks for them because I think that there's a lot of really beautiful and fun RPGs out there that utilize turn-based mechanics perfectly fine. Pokemon has done it perfectly fine for ages and made plenty of perfectly fine games out of that. However, we need this game to be the absolute best home console Pokemon game we have ever seen, which means that there just needs to be little touch-ups to the formula here and there to make it so that it appeals to as many people as possible. With the system that I just mentioned, it is a little more disruptive, but you could see easily how that change could be a lot more engaging. Of course, I don't think that's the perfect solution, nor do I think that's how they're going to change it at all, even if they were going to change something. But in this case, the less reason somebody has to put down their controller, the better. But again, realistically, it's probably going to be standard turn-based, while the Legends titles are the ones that experiment with different battle systems. So we'll have to see. If we could touch up on it in the mainline titles too, though, I wouldn't be mad. In a similar vein, I feel like it is time for the gym challenge to be altered a little bit. I do think that for the most part, if we're being honest, that the most stale thing about the mainline generational titles is how the gym challenge is handled. Now, I will give credit where credit's due. They have tried to change it up just a little bit to make it more interesting in more recent titles. Alola, introducing totem Pokemon and things like that. Massive sport-like televised events in Generation 8. That was awesome, on top of the fact that they gave us a tournament-style ending leading to the champion battle as opposed to an Elite Four, which I loved a lot more personally. And in Generation 9, if we're completely honest, the gym challenge aspect of it was easily the most boring of the 3 storylines, but the fact that we got 3 storylines to add to the progression made things a lot more entertaining and interesting. For me personally, again, I can't speak for you guys. But stuff like that is precisely what I'm talking about. Little itty bitty changes that made a difference that wasn't the most massive thing or the most disruptive thing, but something that added to the experience and made it a little more positive. I think that I like Pokemon Legends ZA the way I do because they gave me precisely what I was looking for in a point-based progression system. Now, I have mentioned this multiple times, and somebody did point out the potential flaw of utilizing a system like that in a turn-based game, and that would make it way too slow and too long. But I don't know. I think with enough cautious work and tinkering, they could definitely find a way to make a point-based system work, even in a turn-based game. Because again, in Pokemon Legends Arceus as well as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, trainers didn't feel as important as they probably should have been. Having a point-based system that made us directly seek out other trainers helped with that a lot, which is why I think I just want a system that helps make other trainers feel a little bit more involved and makes it so that we're not doing the exact same rinse and repeat situation that we've been doing our entire lives again. If we do end up doing it again, fine, whatever, that's how Pokemon has always been, but if we could find a way to tinker with it, I think that would be swell as hell. Next, and I feel like a lot of people can agree with this one, we're probably in need of a new typing now, right? At first, back in 6th gen, when fairy typing was first introduced, it definitely felt a little out of place at first and threw a lot of us off. But I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that not only did it help balance out the typing charts, but it also gave a breath of fresh air, completely new life to older Pokemon that simply needed an extra typing. I mean, let's be real with ourselves here. Clefairy was always kinda nice, but now actually having the fairy typing to fit it? Oh yeah, it's fitted up now with its moveset. It's phenomenal. And that goes for a lot of Pokemon, an entirely new set of moves to pull from, an entirely new typing for resistances and super effective moves. It's great, and nothing short of a good thing in my personal opinion. Now, here's where the crazy comes in a little bit. I think we're a little too used to fairy now. We've had it for so long now that we don't even have to think about it anymore. I remember a prime time when people were saying consistently that fairy typing was way too overpowered. I don't hear that anymore. After all, by the end of this year, we'll have had fairy typing for 13 years. call me absolutely insane for even considering this, but I think we need another massive shakeup. Of a lot of the things that people have talked about and even utilized in like fan games and things like that, sound typing does seem to be the most like plausible, especially when we have Pokemon like Exploud that utilize sound to amplify their power in a way. So in all honesty, I think that would be a fine enough suggestion if they have better ideas by any and all means, but that's just an example that I've heard floating around. We'll definitely have a much bigger discussion on this specific topic, a little more thorough about ideas that people have had for new typings and see what could work going into future generations, but for now, I just hope we get a new one. Now this next one is probably going to sound a little crazy, probably unnecessary, and completely banks off of one of my previous suggestions, but a potential 7th slot could go crazy. We are well over having 1,000 Pokemon in the Pokédex at this point in time. There are so many Pokemon I have yet to have used in a single battle in my entire life, and on top of that, we're about to get probably like 100 plus more Mons. I know that this one is absolutely annoying and would probably throw off way too much for the meta, but at the same time, I feel like it could go crazy in raising a bigger team and fighting against bigger teams. Obviously, like I said a moment ago, this entirely banks off of the situation with the battle system. When it comes to Pokemon and 1v1 battles with pretty much any trainer in the game, you have to beat all of their Pokemon before you can proceed with doing anything else. So if we're fighting against a random trainer in the forest with like 7 different like starting area Pokemon or whatever, it would get really annoying if it was just traditional turn-based. They would need to find a way to justify getting through battles faster so that we could justify even having that extra slot, because otherwise the games would feel like a slog. Of all the things that I'm probably going to talk about here, this is definitely the one that's the most unrealistic and we don't really need all that badly, but I definitely wouldn't mind having an extra slot. Moving on, something else that you guys have heard me talk about plenty of times in the past before, and I will not stop talking about it until the Miltanks come home, but side quests need to be a bigger thing going forward, no ifs, ands, or buts. Despite how you might feel about them in the Legends games, one thing is for certain. They helped make the games feel bigger. They did a decent job of getting me to care a little bit more about the respective residents in each game's town or city. On top of that, there were opportunities to get side quests from characters that were more involved in the main story, or at the very least, they stood out a little bit more. And it gave a chance to get to know some of those characters a little bit better. Not as much in Legends Arceus, but for sure in Legends EA. Yes, obviously the physical rewards are always nice, whether it be the occasional rare candy or some potions or Pokeballs or whatever. That's great and all, I like being rewarded for the work that I do. But as proven in each of the Legends games, we can utilize side quests to get to better know certain characters, or to get to better know the world around us. Hey, want us to get to know certain NPCs on a deeper level? Give us side quests that incentivize us to dig into their past a little bit. You want us to better remember towns, cities, and islands throughout Winds and Waves? Hey, give us NPCs that give us side quests throughout those islands, towns, and cities so that we have an excuse to explore them more. Like I've said a million times, and I'll say a million more, when it comes to RPGs, side quests are critical because they help fill out the world. And one of the best ways to get us more immersed in that world is to have people and places that feel alive. Doing side quests that revolve around these people and places help do that. This is not rocket science. Which is crazy because, again, they have kind of figured that out in the Legends games. Again, they're not perfect, but no set of side quests in any long-term RPG ever is. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I love and adore and have done every single side quest in every Xenoblade game, but I appreciate the fact that they're there at all. And I really just don't think that they have any excuse to not have side quests in the mainline generational titles when other RPGs manage to do this just fine. So, yeah, I think we need to get a little bit of a handle on that. I'm just saying. We'll talk more about that in a dedicated video. Next, this one's crazy stupid specific, but I really hope we get to use the mouse function for something. I think there is genuinely no better opportunity to make the PC feel like a real PC with this mouse feature. I think we should have actual, genuine, almost like replicated mouse functions like we would in real life. And I do mean almost. I know the Joy-Con 2s are nice, but they don't need to do everything. But having the ability to use it like a real mouse in the PC to like click multiple Pokemon or to like drag across a bunch of them and move them to another box seamlessly. That's my vision, you know? Of course, that's more of the small time wish. If we're getting serious, I would love like actual mini games and things like that within the game in of itself that we can use mouse functions for that could actually be really fun. What those could be, I have no idea. I feel like that kind of depends on what Pokemon are going to be available in the game, but we could have some like events or contest situations maybe that could involve some actual mouse feature gameplay that could be really sick. I don't know, I just feel like they can definitely take this time to utilize and incorporate mouse features. They worked hard to make that a thing. I feel like more games need to actually utilize it for something. And this is coming from somebody that primarily plays on a Pro controller. If you give me a reason to use the mouse feature, I will use the mouse feature. Simple as that. Getting more serious here, that hoverboard that the main characters are carrying, we need to actually be able to use that as hoverboards. Skates are cool and all, bikes are nice and all, but nothing would have my heart more than having an actual I'm a sucker for hoverboards, man. Like, conceptually, I think that hoverboards are one of the sickest, rawest, like, sci-fi based things in the entire world. I love them so much. Why they're getting introduced here? Absolutely beyond me. But if they work how I think they're gonna work and they're gonna get us above and through the water, that would be absolutely splendid. I have to imagine that there's gonna be some kind of dedicated progression system for this device, whatever it so happens to be. And that's how we get our HMs to traverse the world, so to speak. We'll get our surf, we'll get our fly, we'll get our strength, maybe, if that is still a thing, our cuts and what have you. But instead of having it connected to a dedicated Pokemon like we did in Scarlet and Violet, it would be this thing instead, which makes plenty of sense. This could be like the ultimate Omni tool. And I would have to imagine that this is probably going to be a very common thing amongst all of the NPCs and the general people living within this region. There's a lot of water. You gotta be able to get across the water some way comfortably, right? Why drop a cool mill in Pokebucks when you can get a Rotom board or whatever this thing is? I actually don't know if it's Rotom. I don't even think it is. It's not the same color as Rotom as these things usually are, but usually for whatever reason now, Rotom is utilized for every single electronic device in the Pokemon realm, so who knows? And now for my last one. This is probably like one of the most common wishes now that we know what the starters are all about, but yeah, go ahead and keep Pombon on all fours for me, please. Y'all did a phenomenal job with Arcanine. Y'all did a great job with Lycanroc daytime form. 3 for 3, please. I know you guys can do this. I have faith that y'all can cook with this final design, because if he stands up, I'm gonna stand on you. And fun little warning, I am not a small dude. I'm not a tiny guy by any means, so do not play with me. Because if my sweet boy stands up on his hind legs and turns into something muscular, it's wraps for y'all. Everybody up in the design room at Game Freak, I'm wrapping you up personally. But in all seriousness, yes, it actually is that serious. Please keep my son on all fours. He is adorable. If I see him stand up, I promise, if I even get a glimpse of a spoiler of him standing up, I will not evolve him. He will stay in the party, he's not getting evolved. I'm dead ass. Unless that hind leg design is absolute cookery, but I don't know. I get a little nervous every time I think about him. Anyway, me and a lot of others are simply praying that these final Evos look good. Simple as that. But for the most part, that'll wrap it up for my early hopes for Pokemon Wind and Waves. Again, it is very early to be hoping for anything, especially when we don't even know what any of the mechanics look like, what any other real characters outside of the primary trainer looks like, what Pokemon are available, or anything like that. But I think it's because of that very fact that it's fine to get a little unrealistic for now, and then once we get that first trailer, we can really break things down. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. So that's gonna go ahead and wrap it up for this one. So I'm passing the mic over in your direction, and I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below. Do you agree with my hopes and wishes? Do you think that some of them are viable? Do you think that these things are realistic and could definitely happen within Gen 10, and this is probably the perfect time to fulfill some of these wishes? Or do you think it's a shot in the dark, none of these make sense, and none of these need to be a thing at all, and I'm completely incorrect and you have better wishes of your own? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!